Hi, I'm Jeff Wilson. I'm the President and CEO of Precipitate Gold Corporation. We trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange under the symbol PRG. We are a junior exploration company focused in the Dominican Republic. We've got an earn-in agreement with Barrick Gold on our Pueblo Grande project, and we also have a project called the Wanda Herrera that is adjacent to Gold Quest Romero, also in the Dominican Republic. And we're also constantly looking for new opportunities in various jurisdictions.
And you're not kidding about that, are you? You popped up to Newfoundland.
We did, yeah.
What happened?
Well, you know, there was a lot of activity in the region. There was some very prospective ground. And we saw an opportunity on a project that we thought had some district scale potential. It had some of the right sort of smoke and some of the right earmarks for what we thought could potentially lead to a new discovery. So we picked up a sizable package. We entered into a relatively soft earn-in agreement there. We went in, we did a first phase of drilling. We just didn't see the kinds of criteria and thresholds that we needed to see. And so we walked away from the option and are looking again for, you know, what else might emerge.
Do you know what? Money's a wonderful thing because it means that you don't necessarily have to drink the Kool-Aid and keep going. You had a look, you killed it real quick, move on to the next thing. I'm not going to waste anyone's money. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, when you're in Canada, you have the access to flow-through capital, so you can raise money at a bit of a premium. You can deploy that money into the ground, maintain your hard dollar treasury, which we were able to do. And you know, again, this is a game of odds, and you know, we took a kick at the can here. It didn't work out, and rather than drag that into a story that was never going to materialize, our view was drill it, kill it, move on.
Good man. Let's head back to the flagship home country, the DR.
Yep.
Let's talk about the Barrick earn-in. I mean, where are they? What have they done?
Yeah, we're really pleased with how that's progressing. So we're now into almost getting up to the 5th anniversary. So I mean, it's amazing how quickly time goes by. And so we've got a we've got an earn-in agreement there whereby they've got to spend $10 million over 6 years and produce a pre-feasibility study at the end of that 6-year term. Yeah. To earn a 70% interest in the project. And the project is, as you know, surrounds their Pueblo Viejo mining operation. So it's, you know, it's strategic ground. And there hasn't really been a lot of work, systematic work done previously. So Barrick looking at not only are they simultaneously expanding the existing mining operation, they're putting an additional $1 billion into infrastructure there. So this is where, you know, the opportunity for them to try to find some more feed and increase the size of the resource there would make sense. So they've now spent about $5 million. And most recently we put out a news release a few weeks ago. You know, drilling has been going quite well. They haven't intersected the big booming intersections that we were hoping, or perhaps that our shareholders are hoping for. But they have seen the right kinds of things in the rocks. And so the drilling is intersecting some of the right kind of alteration that would be the right sort of host rock for the type of mineralization that we're looking for here. This is mostly looking for high sulphidation, epithermal style mineralization there. And so what they've indicated to us is they're taking a bit of a pause on that drill program. They're going to bring in a second drill rig. They're going to do some more detailed geophysics over that area for better vectoring, and recommence drilling there again in the coming months, I would suppose. I don't know the exact timing. And simultaneous to that, they're also doing some earlier stage work elsewhere on our project too. So this is not a one-trick pony. Regardless of how this drilling goes, we know that they've got other areas within the project that they're focused on as well.
Right, so when was that 6-year period end?
2026. April of 2026.
April 2026, okay. And they will have spent $6 million by then.
They will have spent $10 million by then.
$10 million by then, okay. That's not too far away.
It's not, and this is a question that some people have raised is, you know, spending $10 million is one thing. I mean, you and I could go down to the Dominican Republic and spend $10 million and have a great time. But spending it whereby they actually can produce a pre-feasibility study at the end of that, that's a sizable investment. So people are starting to wonder, you know, is Barrick going to be able to sort of deliver on those terms? And it's all or nothing. So if they don't deliver that pre-feasibility and spend the $10 million, they've earned nothing. They don't get sort of 51% and then drag it out. So we'll see what happens.
But given the nature of that, you know, everything else that they've got going on down there, you know, doing a pre-feas on that, it seems that surely they would be more concerned with saying, well, what can this do for our project in the way that we mine our project? And it may be something silly. It's like, well, we'll just use that as a tailings dump. I don't know what they're thinking, but they've got bigger plans and a lot of money being thrown at that. So how flexible are those terms with you? I mean, will you extend that? I mean, they've got more money than you. $1 million a year-ish, $1.5 million a year-ish so far as like, it's nothing to them, but for you, it could be everything. Certainly if they hit. So, how do those relationships evolve? Are you part of the decision making? Do you have access to the data?
Yeah, we do see the data, and we, we're not part of the decision making as it relates to exploration. We get, we are privy to approved budgets and programs and things like that. I think to answer your question maybe more specifically, we've seen, well, first of all, we've got an agreement in place, and it's sort of, as I said, it's sort of all or nothing. It's 70% or nothing. Anytime you're in a position where you've got an agreement and somebody wants to alter or amend or change that agreement, it sort of opens up possibilities. Okay, well, how do we make that worth everybody's while, and what that might look like? So, again, I'm open to that possibility. We've seen with this earn-in agreement previously, this was now a year and a half or 2 years ago, they came to us when you talk about sort of tailings, and they came to us and said, look, there's some ground here within Precipitate's project that we know is sterile. There's nothing there. It's seen prior drilling. We need it for infrastructure purposes. Right. Would you sell it to us? And we went into a fairly lengthy negotiation. It came out, we got a $5 million US check from Barrick to relinquish that ground for infrastructure. Right. So I think, I would welcome the opportunity to have a conversation about that might, some sort of negotiation or discussion might look like. I certainly don't have any preconceived ideas that Barrick's true objective here is to get to a 70-30 partnership with little old Precipitate and sail off into the sunset together. I suspect if they see something that's worthwhile to them, they may come to us and say, how do we facilitate some sort of...
Because it's all or nothing both sides, right?
Yep.
If they step away, I hope they don't, but they step away, for you, there's no real value. It's hard for your shareholders to go, well, I can value that thing. It's only valuable to them, and it's going to be a question of, well, what's that number look like?
Yep.
So let's not think of that as a flagship opportunity for you. So let's look at what else is happening in country. Some encouraging news.
Yeah, I think there's optimism. Again, I don't have any more facts than I've had in the past, and it's been a bit of a process. Our shareholders have had to wade through a fairly lengthy process here, which is it's sort of, there's two sides to it. Number one, as it relates to our project, we have all the necessary drilling permits, exploration permission, licenses that we need. There's nothing to prevent us from spending money and doing work. The impediment has been our neighbors, who have a 3.5 million ounce gold equivalent resource, have made an application for an exploitation permit. And that starts to, drum up a little bit more concern from local communities and environmental concerns, and people get their back up a little bit more about that if there's the potential of a mine going forward in their backyard. And that's not a Dominican thing, that's a universal thing. So we've taken the view that we're gonna sort of sit back and not try to find more gold in our project when the guys next door have found it and can't extract it or don't have a pathway to extraction. So we're on hold on that. So the positive news that you're mentioning is, part of the issue has not really been the mining department or the mining ministry. It's been that it's become a very, this is our neighbors I'm talking about. It's become sort of a political hot potato. The president of the country is up for re-election this spring. By all the numbers we've seen, he'll be re-elected. Like the United States, it's a 2-term maximum, and so he'll be in his final term as president, should he be reelected, whereby maybe you can make the tougher decisions and you're not so worried on re-election and popularity, and you could start to look at things like how do we generate more in taxes and royalty payments and create jobs. And we feel, the messaging that we're getting from the Dominican government is that there is a movement towards getting over this election, and then perhaps there may be a pathway to that exploitation permit being granted, which would be I think a green light for us to then say, okay, we're comfortable deploying some of our capital back into that.
Okay, just remind me, who else is in country operating mines? Is it a mining country?
Well, there's Barrick, obviously we talked about. Falcon Bridge is also operating there from big international company, and then there's an Australian company operating just a couple of kilometers south of Barrick's Pueblo Viejo. And then there's really not much else in terms of precious and base metals. That's sort of the majority of them. But more important perhaps than the number of companies that are operating there, Barrick's Pueblo Viejo alone is the single largest contributor to the GDP. So mining is an absolute necessity in terms of their economy and their need to sort of be able to keep the lights on. So they recognize that. as a country. Barrick's operation, in advance of this expansion that we talked about, Barrick's production numbers have been declining. So going from 1 million ounces a year down to 500,000 or 600,000 ounces a year. And I was speaking yesterday here in Toronto with the Deputy Minister of Mines from the Dominican Republic. He was indicating that shortfall in ounces of gold produced is a shortfall in taxes that are paid to the Dominican government. So they're looking to increase how many ounces of gold are produced per annum. And permitting something like that Romero project next to us would be a direct pathway toward that.
Right. Okay. So because we've had a few people say, "Oh, we've seen projects, we've invested in projects, and they've fallen over, they've been held up, whatever." It's not mining-friendly jurisdiction. You're saying it's actually really important to the economy.
Yes, absolutely.
As far as you're concerned.
Yeah. I mean, I think the impediment here is not that the government doesn't want to do it. The impediment is, and I say this all the time, it's not really a Dominican thing. It's people in general.
Yeah.
They get their back up about mines being built and what that might mean. So it's a matter of educating. And the government's has actually been putting an awful lot of money, time, and effort into educating the media, educating local communities, and quite interesting to me, educating other departments within the government, whether it's the industry, the Ministry of Commerce or Environment, to educate those individuals to understand what mining really is about and how it can impact the country, so that there's sort of more internal support within government to see these things go forward.
Okay, so we're going to park those projects up. At the moment, it doesn't feel like, and the market's telling you, it doesn't feel like there's much value there because you're nearly valued at cash.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess you could go, well, that's the good news. we found the bottom, and we're there. And I don't mean that facetiously. I mean you're in a good place. You got a bunch of cash. Remind us how much? Sorry,
about $5 million.
About $5 million. You've been valued
eight.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Depends on what the last close. Yeah.
But your point is, you can do something with that. You don't need to go and raise it. What you need to do is carefully allocate it to something that's going to generate value. So you can take your time doing that to a degree. So when you say you're looking for, so I'm going to assume where Dominican Republic is a jurisdiction that you're entirely exposed to, you'll be looking for stuff outside of that.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So where have you been looking? What are you seeing? What criteria are you using to vet and discount things that you've seen? Yeah.
We're really sort of jurisdictionally agnostic to a point. We want to be somewhere sound. We think we've got our jurisdictional risk already as it relates to the DR with the uncertainty there. So we're looking at places. We've looked at places like in Canada and the United States, Latin American countries, and some parts of Europe. And so what we're really looking for is precious metals or copper. Gold or copper would be ideal. But what we're looking for doesn't necessarily have to be a super advanced project. It can be something early stage and relatively conceptual. We're not a project generator, in spite of all the stuff we've just said about Barrick and this deal that we have. It's not our mandate to go out and find something that we can hand off to a major. Typically, we want to deploy our own capital, do our own work, make discoveries ourselves. So, we're looking for things that have the earmarks to be sizable. We want them to be in places where we know major companies are comfortable or are already operating, and something that if we are successful with our exploration, there's a pathway or a vision towards the possibility that a major company may want to come in and take it over. So it gets pretty challenging when you sort of set the bar relatively high like that, and the world is shrinking. The stuff we've seen in Panama and other parts of the world. You have to really be careful about where you're going to go, and so it's been relatively difficult to find not only good assets, those are out there, but to your point about sort of blowing up the structure or how we manage the treasury. The terms have to make sense to Precipitate. And in some cases, we've gone fairly far down a path with someone and then realized the devil's in the details and we just can't, sort of come to terms on what a deal would look like. So, our in a preferred world, a straight option deal on a project would be great. If it requires a little bit more than that, maybe utilizing equity as a means to, get the selling party some exposure. But what I don't want to do is take these precious dollars that we were just talking about and hand them off to someone. They need to go in the ground. So finding, the right project, the right terms or partner, has been challenging. And there was a time when I got really quite worried as time was going by that we were going to miss what we were all hoping was going to be the turnaround, and that I would be sort of late to the party to try to buy something or acquire something. fortunately, unfortunately, the market has still stayed soft, and so there's still opportunity. And I don't feel rushed to do something, but I certainly don't, if I can help it, I don't want to be trying to be a purchaser in an upward trending market if I can help it.
Yeah. You've got to protect those dollars, and I think you're right. In terms of the timing of the market, it's just hasn't got back there for gold, despite it being sort of seemingly a perfect environment for gold, or people to be thinking about buying gold for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think anything that we acquire. The other thing is, as much as we have capital in the treasury, I also want to find something that we believe is financeable. And so. For us to have some wonderful concept that no one else shares, and so there's no sort of investment support for it, doesn't make any sense. So again, it's got to be something where we feel like, the story is easily understandable, and that investors can see upside and want to either invest through, private financing or just buy in the market or whatever it may be. So
I would say there's always more deals looking for more money than exists. So there will be deals out there. So just talking, if you can help me understand. Who on the team is capable of finding those deals? Where do you get them from? Because individual networks are quite small. So how do you get out there and expand and sort of expose yourself to the maximum?
Yeah, well, we're fortunate in that from a management standpoint, myself and the VP Exploration, Michael Moore, we're both very connected and have been having conversations with a great number of people. And again, I'm blessed with a board of directors that are again very well connected. Primarily made up of exploration geologists who have a network and a trap line with major companies. We've had some conversations even with majors about things they may be divesting of. So yeah, it's really sort of utilizing that sort of group network and sort of letting people know that we're sort of on the hunt. And again, events like this here at PDAC, we saw the same thing earlier in the year in Vancouver at Roundup and VRIC, where you sort of have this coming together of the industry, and if you're out networking and shaking hands, the topic comes up about what are you doing and what are you looking for. So we've been able to generate some pretty good ideas through just kind of being present at events. And again, there's lots of people that have great projects or maybe several projects and are strapped for cash. And when they talk to other people about how they can sort of advance these things, they're sort of foot soldiers out there on our behalf who say, oh, you should talk to Jeff at Precipitate. They've got money and they're looking. So we've had some inbound things as well.
Okay, well, thanks for the update. I appreciate that. And I appreciate where you're at. It's quite clear what you've got to do. Hopefully 2024 is the year that you do it.
I think the things we don't control would be the market, et cetera. But in terms of where we are with the assets, with the work Barrick's doing, and the potential to sort of pull something out of the hat with respect to a new asset, I think this is an exciting time.
Good man.
Excellent.